wish I could do better by you, 'cause that's what you deserve. You sacrifice so.
Hey guys, so I'm here with another video. This time it is my review of Rotten Ruin by Jonathan Mayberry. This is the first book in the Benny Imura quadrilogy, I believe. Rotten Ruin focuses on Benny Imura, who has just turned 15. Now in this story, the zombie apocalypse has already happened. Probably about 14-15 years prior to where the story takes place now. So in this town that Benny lives in, you are required when you turn 15 to get some sort of zombie related jobs. Now Benny is determined to do any job other than work with his brother, and that is because on first night, which is what they call the first night that the zombie apocalypse occurred, he took Benny and ran away from his family, leaving his family behind to be turned into zombies, which is what he calls the zombies. And so as far as he's concerned, his brother is a coward. But eventually, his only choice is to become a bounty hunter. So later on in the story, Benny and his brother Tom go out into the rotten ruin. This is sort of where Benny starts to realize that sometimes the scariest monsters aren't really the monsters. They're the humans who run around in the rotten ruin, or even people in his own town. This is probably not the best description of this book, and this was the issue that I had when I first tried to record this video, when I first read this book back in June. And it's such a different kind of book, and it's not the book that you expect it to be, so it's hard to describe. And I don't want to get too into it because I don't want to give away spoilers. This book is more than a story about these people who go out and kill zombies. This really is a story about really discovering what humanity is. Now let's talk about the plot. I loved the plot. I'm pretty sure I finished this book in one night. When I read the description of this book, I sort of expected it to be like a humorous zombie story, and it definitely did have those moments. You know, Benny has these very witty one-liners, and it's very much needed comic relief because this is a very sort of deep, somber story. But for the most part, this was really a page turner. Like, I couldn't wait to figure out what happened next, which is why I finished it in one night. And I cried like probably 2 to 3 times in this book, especially during one scene towards the end that completely ripped my heart out of my chest and stomped on it. This was one of those plots that, for the most part, I really had no problems with it. I can't remember really disliking anything about this book. It was exciting, it was funny, and it was very emotional. Let's talk about the characters. Benny was a perfect character. His character development was one of the best that I've read in a while. He starts out in the story completely hating the zombies. He thinks they're disgusting, he thinks they're horrible, he blames them for everything. But as the story goes on, as he's out in the rotten ruin, and as he talks to Tom, and Tom sort of explains these certain things to him, and definitely by the end of the story, he is a completely different person. He obviously still hates the zombies, but by the end of the story, he really has more compassion for them. He sort of starts to realize that it's not their fault that they are the way they are, and that's what I really loved about his character development. At first, he was so ignorant, and anything that Tom tried to tell him, he was like, no, you're stupid, you're too compassionate, how could you think this? As well as his, compassion for the zombies towards the end of the story, he finds out that he has had the wrong idea about Tom the entire time. Tom, his brother, I loved to death in this book. You don't go too much into detail with him besides like what he does, because he is a bounty hunter, but he's a different kind of bounty hunter, and I think he was probably one of my favorite characters. He was the perfect mix of, what you'd expect a bounty hunter to be, and also a good brother. He doesn't try to force these things on Benny. One thing I loved about him was that he wasn't trying to force these things on Benny. He didn't try to force him to remember what actually happened on first night. He doesn't force him to have compassion for these zombies. He sort of just brings to light something that Benny never really thought about before. He explains his beliefs to Benny, and then he lets Benny sort of soak that in and do what he will with it. And I think I really like that about Tom, and that's what really made me love him, was that he wasn't one of those older brothers that were like, no, you can't think this, you have to think this way. I absolutely love this book. It was definitely one of my favorite books that I have read this year. One thing I loved about this book is that Jonathan Maberry did a perfect job at world building. He built the world throughout the story. He didn't throw all these details at you at once in the first few chapters, so you're sort of drowned in all this description. He gives you pieces and pieces throughout the story until the very end. So by the end, you are aware of what this world is, how it functions, and how it came to be. He is so good at introducing you to this world, and not only just the world building, but the character building. You know, within the first few chapters, you already care about these characters. You're already protective of them. You don't want anything bad to happen to these characters. And so I think that makes him a fantastic author. I gave this book a 5 out of 5 rating, obviously, because I've been raving about this book. If you're one of those people who don't like those zombie stories that are all about chopping zombies up and killing them, and that's not really what this book is about. Obviously, there's some zombie killing in it, but for the most part, it's a much deeper story than that. Let me know in the comments if you guys have read this book and what you thought of it, or if you haven't read it, are you interested in reading it? Like I said, my synopsis was terrible because it's such a roller coaster of a book. I didn't know how to explain it well, but it really is a good book. Definitely go check it out. Alright, so my recommendations for this video are 2 different kinds. The first one is a song. It is off the Punk Goes Pop Volume 5 compilation. I don't know if any of you guys have heard of that. Fearless Records does it. It's where they get a lot of rock bands. They do covers of pop hits that are popular right now. And so the song I'm about to recommend, it's a cover of Somebody That I Used to Know. Everyone knows that song. It's by Mayday Parade featuring Vic Fuentes from Pierce the Veil. So I will leave that link down below. I love it way more than the original. I thought the original was kind of annoying, and this one is more my style, so I definitely enjoy it much more. The next thing I am recommending is a channel. It's sort of like a web show, sort of. It's called Needleboys. It's done by Sparrows Tattoo Company, which is here in Mansville, Texas. This is the tattoo shop that I will be going to for my first tattoo and all my tattoos. I'm going to get my tattoos done by Clint Cummings. He is the owner of Sparrows Tattoo. He is also on this season of Ink Master, so definitely check that out if you're into tattoos. I don't know if any of you are. I am. So yeah, it's definitely hilarious. It's sort of like a day in the life of, you know, the Sparrows tattoo artist, and it's hilarious. It's awesome. You see definitely a bunch of ink work getting done, and it's fantastic. So if you're into that sort of thing, if you're into tattoos, definitely go check that out. I watched all like 38, 39 episodes in one night, like a couple nights ago. It's definitely entertaining to watch. So we've come to the end of the video. If you liked this video, don't forget to hit the like button, and the subscribe button is up there. Don't forget to leave comments below on what you thought of Rotten Ruin, if you want to read it or if you have read it, and let me know about my recommendations if you checked those out. I will see you guys for my next video. Bye. In this